Joe Borelli, many thanks for your time. Just one thing you could explain to me. Why is it that this state, New York, is linked with presidential elections to the Democrat Party so many times?
Well, this state hasn't gone for a Republican candidate since 1984. And frankly, the reason is because we Republicans haven't done as good of a job until recently of attracting new immigrants and new domestic migrants to this city to our party. It's only now that we saw with a gubernatorial election 2 years ago that we seem to be making some inroads. We made some inroads last year in some of the House races that surround New York City. But ultimately, this is a blue state and likely will vote for Kamala Harris in this cycle.
So, okay, is it tough being a Republican? You're the minority leader in the New York City, is the mayoral race. Is it a tough thing to be arguing your case the whole time, knowing largely you're going to lose?
Look, we lose a lot of policy debates, we lose a lot of bill counts and whip counts, but where we win is that we get to highlight the failures of progressive government. I mean, you have here in New York policies called bail reform and raise the age, which basically open the gates to our jails, so anyone getting caught and convicted of crime serves minimal, if any, jail time. We have the migrant crisis. Its epicenter is New York City. For whatever reason, people always want to come here. So whether they're crossing the southern border or whether they're crossing the border anywhere legally, they want to come here to New York City. And we just have failure upon failure of progressive policies from our tax structure, which means that hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers flee this state every year for greener pastures in the South and out West. So it's not hard to be me. It's just hard to be me and pass legislation.
Okay, so the migration issue is centre of this presidential race right now. One of the issues is it also causes a housing crisis in New York. Now, it's not dissimilar to the housing crisis that Australia is seeing right now.
Look, we've had 220,000 people come through our system as migrants who have crossed the southern border and have arrived here. We have 65,000 still in our system. That means nearly 150,000 people are somewhere in New York City putting pressure on our existing housing supply. We had a housing crisis before 2022 when this problem arose, and now it's only been exacerbated by the amount of people who are coming here that also qualify for certain programs. They just put pressure on our existing housing infrastructure.
So that becomes a real pressure because there are people in the system that are just simply not turning up. So that either means overcrowding in tenements or it means people living on the streets. And that is a big issue for a city like New York.
Yeah, I mean, our homeless shelter population has essentially doubled between the migrant population and the existing homeless. So even finding temporary housing within our existing buildings is very difficult. But the real problem is that these are folks who are trying to find housing within the 5 boroughs or just in the exterior, and they just can't. We as a city, we don't do a great job of building enough and fast enough to keep up with the market demands. And now we see the pressure on the cost. And the cost, whether it's the cost of rent, the cost of a mortgage, the high interest rates on a mortgage, for example, or just the property taxes you pay to live in this city, people are just fleeing. People are they continue to go to Florida, they continue to go to the Carolinas, they continue to go to Arizona and wonderful places throughout the U.S.
So one part of the politics right now is, though there's a presidential race, which largely will go to Kamala Harris, on the other side, there's also the Congress, which is absolutely key to the future president getting good legislation through. And that's where New York could play a key role, because there are genuine boroughs and areas of New York which could swing and could have an influence on that congressional race.
Yeah, we were pivotal in 2022 of flipping the House from Democrat to Republican. We had about 5 seats within the periphery of New York City flipped from Democrat to Republican. We're defending all 5 of those seats. There's a good chance we lose 1 or 2 of them. But even if we keep the bulk of them here in New York, I think we still have a great chance of keeping the House of Representatives. I think what we're likely to see is President Trump be in the White House, the Senate be Republican, and the House of Representatives also be Republican.
And that's an amazing thing, to actually get then Donald Trump able to execute his agenda, knowing that he's actually got the Congress and the Senate alongside.
Yeah, it's a clear mandate. And the most significant change will be what the president could do with the Senate in terms of appointing Supreme Court justices. There's a likelihood that he'd be able to appoint 2 more Supreme Court justices, in addition to hundreds more federal judges at the appellate level and the district court level. That really would change the country fundamentally for a generation. And again, I think he's going to win this election cycle a week from the day we're speaking now, and have a significant mandate to do it.
But it does also stop all of the budget bills being held up in the Congress or in the Senate, and really a president not being able to get their agenda through. And we've seen so many presidents really being held up in this way, almost 11th hour deals on whether budgets are passed, whether finances passed, and that makes really just running America much more difficult.
It's going to be difficult when you have a split Congress or when the president has neither house of Congress to enact anything. Unfortunately, when that does happen, it takes compromise and it takes deal making. And we've seen Democrats be uncompromising even when it's at their disadvantage. The House passed H.R. 2, which was an immigration bill back in March of 2023. This is a bill that would have addressed the migrant crisis, which is the #1 issue or #2 issue, depending on what the poll you read. And yet Democrats didn't want to come to the table and negotiate a bill that was passed by the House of Representatives.
So just a final one. Is it tough to live in New York City right now? I mean, inflation's gone up. Cost of living seems pretty high. Cost of housing is high. Is it actually tough to be a New Yorker right now?
Look, it's very difficult to be a New Yorker. The cost of living, the cost of food, the cost of gas, the cost of rent, the cost of everything has gone up. And when you see that the toothpaste is still behind the plexiglass from all the crime, people start to question whether that premium is worth the cost. We've always been an expensive city, but people have made that decision to pay that premium to be here. That ratio and that calculus has changed over the last couple of years as the cost has gone up and the safety has gone down.
Joe, great to chat to you. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you.